What's up, everyone? Thanks for stopping back by the channel. Really appreciate you being here. This video we're going to talk about weeks 2 and 3 of the Academy. Once we had finished up on Friday, we were cut loose. We had the weekend off to ourselves, Saturday and Sunday. You were on your own free time. We were told to be back at the Academy in class by 0600 Monday morning. The ones that lived in the barracks and didn't live close enough to go home, they stayed there. I went home for the weekend, got up early Monday morning, got myself all dressed out, got back in class, and week 2 went from there. First day of it, we started off with an 8-hour day of first aid training. It was a rather long day, what we like to call death by PowerPoint. Finished up that day, go back to the barracks. We could eat dinner from that point, from then on out, at the Walls unit, which was pretty much adjacent, I guess you could say, to the barracks where we lived at. You just walked over there, show your ID to the front door picket boss, go on in through the area, go to the ODR, eat dinner. You couldn't take anything out from it, and it was free. Wake up, have barracks inspection, go on to class from there. Week 2 consisted of a lot of building policies, building procedures, how the shifts work, the two different kinds of units, the 12-hour shifts versus the 8-hour 45-minute shifts, different policies and procedures regarding how general population units ran, ADSEG units ran, the medical office ran, how the rec yard was run, stories from the instructors, and then occasionally there would be some role play scenarios. The instructor would have one of the recruits stand up. We'd stand up. Instructor says, "You're walking down the tier, taking count." Offender looks at you and says, "Hey boss, I'm thinking about killing myself." And the awkward pause would begin. From there, you had to respond to the instructor just as if you were in that scenario and situation. There wasn't one right answer. There were a lot of wrong answers, but there were also a lot of right answers. So you had to work your way through it, starting to get your mindset ready for scenarios and situations that you were going to be put in with offenders. By the end of week 2, we had a weekend off again, came back. We were told week 3 we would be moving from the log cabin to the actual academy building, which was across from Ellis High Security and not too far away from the holiday unit, which was the receiving unit in Huntsville for newly reporting inmates to get classified and go from where they were going to go from there. Week 3 started a transition from a lot less classroom time and a lot more hands-on type training. We had been doing defensive tactics up to that point, changing into our PT gear, black sweats, black t-shirt, running shoes. We would work out back of the log cabin. We would do defensive tactics training, intro to handcuffs. But now that we had moved on to the main academy building, we weren't doing it in our PT gear near as much. We were doing it more in uniform, which is where you were going to be doing everything in the unit. You're always in uniform, and if an altercation broke out, use of force, anything to that nature, you had to be ready to deal with it in uniform and not just your comfy PT gear. So we started getting into that a lot more. We would have a couple of classes about the different types of jobs within TDCJ, more so the civilian type jobs, maintenance supervisors, locksmiths, painters, HVAC type employees, the kitchen workers, also called the chow hall workers, laundry, different types of jobs that we could branch out into as COs if we wanted to get out of the security type position. Correctional officer was considered security, maintenance was civilian position. They would usually just wear pants, polo shirt, something semi-casual, business-like, respectable looking. Once we would get done with the classes in the academy, we started to have a few more breaks There was a break room that was in. There was a big coffee pot, paper cups. You could make yourself some coffee. There was a drink dispenser, a soda machine, a vending machine that had different snacks. You couldn't bring anything back into the classroom, and certainly don't give anything to the two SSIs that worked around there. They weren't supposed to interact with us. We weren't supposed to interact with them. Typically, they didn't. If they were to interact with us, that was supposed to be instant job removal and disciplinary for them. They were just there to clean the place. However, offenders do manipulate. Once we'd finish up with class for the day, we'd go out back of the building, and that was where the range was. The range was a series of different targets, different kinds of courses. We'd fire the M16 A1 rifle, not the A2 rifle, the old school A1 rifle. TDCJ was a little bit behind the times. 38 caliber revolver and double-aught buck shotgun. That was mainly used for riot control. We also had OC pepper spray training, how to spray it, what its exposure was going to feel like. We had tear gas exposure, what that was going to feel like. If you have to gas an offender in a building, you still have to go in and restrain that individual and control the situation. You're going to get OC pepper spray exposure. It burns, it stings, it makes your eyes water, cough, snot, spit. It's a skin irritant. It's a mucous membrane irritant. You got to get used to what it's going to feel like because you're going to be exposed to it at some particular point. And this was the initial exposure. Those that had been in the military before, prior service, we were used to a little bit of the exposure. For some, it was their very first time. I don't think you ever really develop an immunity to it. Some people do. I never did. It seemed like it was the first day all over again for me. So by that point, it felt good to be out of the classroom. We were outside. The days were going by a little bit faster. At the end of the day, we'd go back to the barracks, go over to the walls unit. You couldn't wear your uniform over there. We didn't have our state-issued ID cards at that point. So to go in uniform without your state-issued ID, you can't get into any facility. So we had to wear our civilian clothes that we had, and we had a paper printed off from the academy that let us get in and out to eat there. That also basically let any officer and offender know that we were cadets and we couldn't be tasked with any type of duty within the facility from there. By the end of week 3, we had fired most of the weapons at that point. We were getting ready for qualification. Friday came up with our pistol qualifications, rifle M16 qualifications. You had to put so many rounds into the target at so many distances. We were grouped up for our gas exposure. Everyone got together and linked arms. Can't see very well, but we would interlink arms with each other, lines of four long, 3 down, stand, and the instructor had a tear gas can, looks kind of like a soda can. It would pop the top, and it was on a long pole. At the end of the pole, the instructor would pop the top of that, hold the pole straight out, and walk around us, and we had to stand there and just let it happen. The tear gas makes what looks like a white cloud of smoke. You breathe in a big whiff of it, and you instantly go to coughing, sneezing, hacking. It displaces the oxygen. So it makes you feel like you can't breathe. You can, it just doesn't seem like it because you're so choked up with this gas. The way you fail that is if you run away from the formation. If you break arms with the individuals that you're with and take off running, that's a fail from that point. You have to stand there and take it and just be exposed to it. By the end of that day, that was Friday, we were told we have the weekend off. We'll come back into class on Monday morning, and instead of going to the academy, that was going to start our unit tour. We were supposed to report to the holiday unit, and from there, that was going to be our exposures to what the units were going to be like. When we get into the next video, we'll talk about how the unit tour went, everything that we had to perform from there, and then we'll finish up our journey through the academy and get ready for experiences at the units. Appreciate you taking the time to check out the video. Have a good rest of the day.